Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I always make clear, this show has a single purpose, holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And today, we're going to achieve that goal by examining how a cop watcher's efforts to record police and what cops did in response is actually leading to some truly surprising developments in our legal system. In fact, what is happening is so profound, it calls into question the entire notion that the cop watcher's work is a worthless endeavor in search of clicks. But before we get started, I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com. And please like, share, and comment on our videos. You know I read your comments and appreciate them. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Facebook or Twitter. And of course, if you can, please hit the Patreon link pinned below in the comments because we do have some extras for our PAR family. All right. Now we've gotten all that out of the way. Now, everyone who watches this show knows that we don't just report on bad cops, but we also focus on the people who watch them, meaning citizen journalists with their own YouTube channels whose efforts to document law enforcement overreach have been both popular and controversial. Most of the criticism can be summarized thusly. Cop watchers and auditors, otherwise known as frauditors, don't really accomplish any real change. Instead, they simply provoke police to get clicks and eventually monetize their videos in exchange for cash. So first, I'm not even going to weigh into the debate about monetizing a video. Every major news corporation does. So why is it so deplorable for a citizen journalist to do the same? I mean, nobody seems to criticize how companies like Google and Facebook monetize practically everything we do and then sell the data. But today I want to address the second prong of the frauditor's argument, namely, to quote beloved American author William Faulkner, cop watchers are full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Well, interestingly, a recent case pretty much turns that notion on its head. It involves a cop watcher known as Liberty Freak, or Abity. He is and was a video activist who worked closely with controversial fellow cop watcher Eric Brandt, who has also been accused of being nothing more than a social menace. But as I already mentioned, a case before the Federal 10th Circuit Court of Appeals may actually put these two YouTubers in a position to do something pretty extraordinary. What I mean is that according to the briefs filed with the court in support of their case, the video you are now seeing on screen has the potential to deliver a stinging blow to the legal orthodoxy which has made police almost immune to accountability. But before I delve into the details of what might happen and the implications, I want to start by giving you background on the actual encounter with the police that started this series of, at least for people in favor of recording the police, fortunate events. The story begins in 2019 when the cop watcher Liberty Freak, along with Eric Brandt, was filming police at an accident scene in Lakewood, Colorado. The duo was exercising their First Amendment rights when a Lakewood City police officer decided he was going to interfere with their recording. Let's watch.
Hey, get the fuck out of his face, asshole!
Can I help you?
No.
All right.
I need your help.
Hey,
You got a
get the
fucking
fuck
problem,
out of
you
his
fucking
face,
goon?
asshole.
Get the fuck out of my fucking line, man. What's wrong with you? Clown?
Are you a clown?
There's always gotta be one fucking clown that shows up.
Fucking jackass.
You know, you're always the jackass that makes the video.
Now, not only did the officer obstruct their clearly lawful right to record, the mood further escalated an encounter in a way that we unfortunately have witnessed before on this show, as you can see.
Fuck you, you guys shine those things in my eyes all the time.
Think you get extra privileges, douchebag?
Yeah, I've just had them shined in my eyes all night by you guys.
But Abity did not simply sit back and allow the police to have the final word on his First Amendment rights. He, like his counterpart Eric, used the courts to contest the behavior of Officer Yahia. Just a side note here, many of the auditors we have interviewed on this channel have actually used the courts to make real progress to affirm the constitutional rights of everyone. Take, for example, well-known cop watcher the Batusai, who won a case when a cop in Texas prevented him from recording a police facility, and has actually made case law known as Turner versus Lieutenant Driver, which is cited often by lawyers who fight for freedom of speech. But after Abity sued is when the rubber met the proverbial road. That's because lawyers representing Officer Yahia turned to a warm blanket of legal theory used by cops across the country to evade any responsibility for their actions. It's a concept known as qualified immunity, the idea that police officers are immune to legal liability if the right they violate is not firmly established when the violation occurred. Just to give you some background on the long and twisted history of this controversial legal concept, the idea of qualified immunity was carved out by courts in response to a federal statute known as 1983. That statute was passed during the Reconstruction era to allow citizens to sue public officials acting under the color of law for violations of constitutional rights. Over time, the court carved out these special exemptions for certain public officials, including police officers, to give them the leeway to argue that the right they violated wasn't firmly established and thus cannot be held accountable for their actions. A brief on Abity's case by the Cato Institute points out this esoteric legal theory has evolved into a two-headed monster of police impunity, as courts have extended this concept to a variety of cases where police and public officials have violated someone's rights and then simply cloaked themselves in the aforementioned blanket of immunity and walked away scot-free. In fact, this idea has become so toxic to the notion of police accountability that was originally part of a bipartisan legislation aimed at reforming police, currently still on the docket in Washington. Unfortunately, that part of the bill has been carved out during negotiations between Democrats and Republicans. I wonder why. But nevertheless, could it be that Abity and Eric Brandt and their band of so-called frauditors might be able to achieve what our nation's elites cannot? Could the YouTubers who have been ridiculed as clickbaiting opportunists actually strike down a pillar of law enforcement protection that the best lawyers have yet to be able to dent? Well, it is actually possible. And for more and why and how this could happen, I'm going to talk to the man at the center of the case himself, Abity, also known as Liberty Freak. But before we do, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Janis, who has been delving into the case and has more on the legal filings and what they mean. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Stephen, I was talking about qualified immunity and how this case could set precedent. How has qualified immunity been used in this case, and what are the implications?
I think what's interesting about this case is the way qualified immunity was used by the court. The district court granted it in 2019. This is after the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and 11th circuits had already granted or affirmed that the First Amendment right to record was an established right, and that's where it conflicts with the idea of qualified immunity. So this case could be a particularly interesting case because the whole concept of qualified immunities is the officer's not aware. This also includes the fact that there was a 2015 law passed in Colorado that also affirmed the right to record police. So there are multiple legal issues where qualified immunity, the use of it, could be challenged.
Now, there have been several briefs filed in the case, including with the U.S. Department of Justice. What do the briefs say and why are they important?
Well, what's very important about it, just the fact the U.S. Department of Justice has said this is a very pivotal First Amendment rights case, that the ability to record police is fundamental to holding police accountable, which of course has been the message of cop watchers, and which actually, weirdly, of all things, the Department of Justice has affirmed. The Cato Institute has also joined with an amicus brief that focuses mostly on qualified immunity, saying that the legal concept is untethered from the statute from which it arose, and that it's completely gotten out of control, basically, and been used in many cases where it's not warranted. So these briefs, among others, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the University of Colorado Law School, it's an incredible collection of legal minds who are going to bat for, two auditors who had their cameras recording an accident in Lakeland, Colorado.
So what makes you think this case could have some real impact on qualified immunity? And why is it important with regards to First Amendment rights and the right to record?
Well, I think when the legal system reacts to correct something, it's when something has been abused. And the fact that the district court kind of just dismiss the case based on qualified immunity when there was much evidence that the right was established. Like I said, all those circuits had already affirmed that right. I think this is going to be kind of a test case where a good legal mind will have the opportunity to say, you know what, you've overstepped your bounds. It's time to start pushing back on this whole notion of qualified immunity. I think this could be a really pivotal case, which I think speaks to the power of cop watching and why even going to a routine accident can have an important influence on our First Amendment rights. Me as a journalist, I am hoping that this case turns out well because it's important to us. We record stuff on sidewalks. And so this shows how this whole continuum of behavior, how cop watching, auditors, and journalism, can have effects that you don't see or unintended effects or positive outcomes for all of us.